It all begins with an act of misguided compassion. Animal rights activists break into a lab in Cambridge to free chimpanzees held for experimentation. But the chimps are infected with a new virus, rage, a highly contagious pathogen that turns people into frenzied, bloodthirsty aggressors within seconds. Once unleashed, the virus spreads with terrifying speed across Britain. 28 days later, Jim, played by a formidable Cillian Murphy, wakes up alone in a London hospital. He's a bicycle courier who's been in a coma, unaware of the outbreak. The city is silent, abandoned. He wanders through empty streets, confused, until he's nearly killed by infected attackers. Rescued by Selina and Mark, two survivors hardened by the collapse of society, Jim learns the rules of this new world. The infected don't rest, don't think, don't stop. They're not zombies in the traditional sense. They're still alive, but consumed by uncontrollable rage. After a close call with the infected, Mark is killed, and Jim and Selina press on, eventually meeting Frank, played by Brendan Gleeson, a warm-hearted taxi driver who's managed to create a safe haven in a tower block for himself and his teenage daughter, Hannah. Frank is cautious but kind, more hopeful than most survivors. When they pick up a recorded military broadcast promising protection, the group sets out on a journey across a devastated landscape, holding on to the hope of safety. They reach the military outpost commanded by Major Henry West, Christopher Eccleston. But what they find is far from the sanctuary they imagined. West and his men aren't offering protection, they're enforcing control. Their vision of rebuilding society involves coercion, and worse. Major Henry West and his men have their own plan for rebuilding society, and it has little to do with morality. What follows is a violent unraveling of trust, as Jim must decide what kind of man he'll become to survive. In the violence that follows, Jim is forced to shed the last remnants of who he was. In the end, only he, Selina, and Hannah make it out. The final act of 28 Days Later is less about escape and more about reclaiming some shred of humanity amid the madness. Fast forward to 28 weeks later. The infection has run its course. At least on the surface, the British Isles have been quarantined, and now NATO forces led by the US military begin a resettlement operation in London. They establish District 1, a heavily guarded zone meant to symbolise a new beginning. Among the returnees is Don, portrayed by Robert Carlyle, a man haunted by guilt. During the first wave of chaos, he escaped by abandoning his wife, Alice. He now reunites with his children, Tammy and Andy, in the supposedly safe zone. But surprise, Alice is alive. And here's the twist, she's infected, but she shows no symptoms. She's an asymptomatic carrier of rage, meaning she carries the virus but shows no symptoms. The implications are staggering. When Alice is unexpectedly found alive and still infected, the discovery sends shockwaves through the operation. Of course, the virus doesn't stay contained. A single act of emotion leads to catastrophe. In a moment of remorse and emotion, Don kisses Alice, gets infected, and kicks off a second outbreak that tears through the supposedly safe zone like wildfire. The virus spreads through District 1 almost instantly. The military responds with Code Red, total extermination of the population, infected or not. We follow Scarlett Rose Byrne, a military doctor who realizes that Andy might hold the genetic key to resistance. He shares his mother's unique immunity. Protecting him becomes the priority, but it's nearly impossible as the city descends into chaos. Sergeant Doyle, Jeremy Renner, a sniper with a conscience, risks everything to help Scarlett and the kids escape, while General Stone, Idris Elba, oversees a mission spinning out of control. The film closes with a bleak message. The virus doesn't stop at the English Channel. Final scenes suggest it's made its way to Paris. The rage virus is no longer Britain's problem. It's become everyone's. Now, before 28 years later hits, a few things are worth remembering. The rage virus isn't a zombie plague. The infected are alive, just consumed by blind fury. They don't moan, they shriek. They don't shuffle, they charge. And they don't die unless you kill them or they starve. What also sets this series apart is how it handles human nature. The infected are horrifying, yes, but some of the most chilling moments come from the people who are still sane. Military men with god complexes governments that treat civilians as expendable, survivors who lose their humanity. Director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland crafted a visceral experience with 28 Days Later, utilizing digital video to capture a raw, immersive atmosphere. The decision to film in real locations, often during early mornings, lent authenticity to the desolate London streets. The sequel, directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, maintained the franchise's gritty aesthetic while introducing new characters and expanding the narrative's scope. Set to release on June 20th, 2025, 28 Years Later reunites Boyle and Garland, promising a fresh chapter in the saga. The film stars Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and Ralph Fiennes, introducing new characters navigating a world still grappling with the aftermath of the rage virus. While details are scarce, it's confirmed that Cillian Murphy will return as Jim in the sequel, 28 Years Later. The Bone Temple, slated for January 16th, 2026. His involvement as both actor and executive producer signals a deepening of the franchise's legacy.